there are at least a dozen states that are exempting religious gatherings from their lockdown orders. So the majority of states have shut down, non-essential businesses. Some haven't, but even in many of the states that have shut down the non-essential businesses, they say, well, religious gatherings are essential. And so people can gather in small places with large numbers of people and poor ventilation as long as you say it's a religious thing. So make no mistake about it, this will absolutely help spread the virus. And I want to show you what some of these people are saying.
Driving out of this Ohio parking lot is a woman who just attended a church service with dozens of other people, including children.
Can I ask you about your decision to go to church, to be inside that building?
I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Aren't you concerned you could infect other people if you get sick inside?
No.
People who don't go to this church?
No. I'm covered in Jesus' blood. I'm covered in Jesus'
But what
blood.
about other people who don't go to this church who you might encounter?
All of these people go to this church.
No, but you're going to be in places where other people
I go to
are.
the grocery store every day. I'm in Walmart,
What?
Home Depot, all of those
But you
people.
could get them sick from what happens in
They
the
could
church.
get me sick, but they're not because I'm covered in his blood. Thank you very much.
What? How do you respond to that? It's one thing, I've said this many times before, but it's one thing to be wrong. It's one thing to be wrong about something. It's another thing to be arrogantly wrong about something. So not only are you wrong, you seem insistent that you're right. Now, listen, at one point or another, we've all played the fool in our lives, and I'm sure I've done that at some point. I'm sure you've done that at some point. But to do it on a topic so preposterous, don't worry, it's okay. I'm covered in Jesus' blood. Okay, first of all, that alone would probably lead to disease. You don't want to be covered in anybody's blood. Never mind Jesus' blood. I'm covered. She was like, I'm covered in his blood. It's okay. She was so sure of herself. I'm covered in his blood. It's fine. I'm covered in his blood. I'm covered in his blood. It's cool. It's cool. I mean, I know religious people. I have religious people in my life. And even though they're religious, you would never hear them say such a ridiculous thing. Never! As soon as the pandemic hit, they were like, I'm not going to church. Are you kidding me? Why would I do that? Why would I do that? Make it likely that I get the virus. You really think Jesus is going to protect you from the virus? That's actually a thing that you think. If that was true, there would be no Christians that have the virus. No Christians would have the virus if that was true. But a lot of them do. There are plenty of Christians that have the virus. So what do you think? I mean, I guess if you talk to this woman, she would say, well, I mean, look, their faith just wasn't strong enough. Oh, come on. Come on. I don't know. Maybe she would say that, or maybe she would say, no, I don't think any Christians have had the virus. There was the famous case, one of the early cases in South Korea. They were like quarantining well, and there was one person that had the virus that went to religious services and spread it to so many more people, and that led to the numbers going up pretty rapidly at one point. Now that they've since got it under control, everybody's wearing a mask, they do chain testing, but the original outbreak really spread because of one religious person who went to services. I mean, you couldn't create something designed to spread the virus more than a religious gathering. You couldn't, because everybody's like on top of each other, super close to each other, a bunch of people in a small area, and you could easily, just from coughing a few times, infect 6, 7 people around you, and then think about each one of those 7 people will infect 3 other people per day, assuming that they're, acting relatively normally, and they are going to the supermarket, they are going to whatever the essential businesses are. So, I mean, there are plenty of people who are true fundamentalists, like this lady here. So this is why you need the government to act more rationally. This is why you need the government to say, well, no, we're going to shut down all non-essential businesses. All. Now, maybe you can make some exceptions for things that are uniquely suited for people not to get sick, anything where, if somebody wants to go to the park and play volleyball or something, you're far enough away from each other where you're not going to get the virus that way. So you could be reasonable about it. You could be nuanced about it and craft, loopholes or whatever where you say, well, there's no risk here, so you could do that. That's fine. But by and large, all the non-essential gatherings, definitely something like religious services, have to be shut down. The government has to be reasonable. And you're having, I believe it was Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, making these tortured cases about how, but the Constitution makes it so that we can't do that? Oh, come on. Really? Really? So your idea of separation of church and state includes that if there's a national crisis and emergency and pandemic, therefore, nothing the government says applies to religious institutions? But that's so silly. Like, okay, yes, we have separation of church and state, but if somebody commits murder in a church, we don't say, well, he gets away with it because it's technically part of the religious institution. We don't do that because that's stupid. That's stupid. That makes no sense. It's not like all laws are out the window when it comes to a church. No, that's not what that means. But they're just bending over backwards. You want to know why? Because a lot of the governors who are doing it are probably really religious themselves. But beyond that, a lot of them are Republicans, and a lot of their voting constituency who supported them in high numbers involve religious people, and they don't want to upset them. But you know what will upset them a hell of a lot more? When they start dropping dead. When they start dropping dead, because that will happen. That will happen. You absolutely should shut down. Trump should have done it a while ago. Trump has been not good in dealing with this thing at the federal level. In other words, he's really letting the states kind of decide on their own. The governors decide on their own. But I think that's leading to more of a spread, because there are going to be plenty of states that don't shut everything down, and then eventually it'll spread there. But this is one of those instances where at the federal level, they should have taken action for sure. Trump should have said at the federal level. He originally said, come Easter, I want, let's reopen the country by Easter. Thankfully, he backed off of that. We probably have to thank, Dr. Fauci and whatever other scientifically minded people are talking to him. But this is wild. See, you wonder why we need like a national quarantine and we need a national lockdown. It's because many people in the country are going to sound exactly like that. I don't know the exact number. Don't quote me on it, but anywhere from 20 to 30% of the country are hardcore religious fundamentalists. And right alongside religious fundamentalism comes a denial of science. And it manifests in many ways. Like, these are the same people who don't believe in evolution. These are the same people who don't believe in climate change. They think that's a hoax. And clearly, these are the same people who are now, to some extent, pandemic deniers. And I don't just want to pick on the religious people, because there are plenty of people who have this casual assumption of like, yeah, but it won't impact me. Like, there are plenty of people who think that way. Like, oh, I see the devastation and the destruction, but I'm me, so I'll be all right. I'm telling you, a lot of people think that way. But this is like, a step further, and you're going to get a higher number of people that are fundamentalist evangelicals who are going to think like this. It's all right. I'm covered in the blood of Jesus. Don't worry about it. Oh, you were concerned. You were concerned that I might get it or I might spread it. Don't be ridiculous. I'm covered in the blood of Jesus. Think about how ridiculous that sounds to somebody not in the context of the U.S. I mean, it sounds ridiculous in the U.S., but if an alien comes down and they hear the whole situation of the pandemic and they see this woman, oh, so humans are idiots. That's what this is, right? That's what they would think. And the old school test is to remove the religion that you're most familiar with and put in one that you're not familiar with. And then you'd see how silly it looks. If a voodoo witch doctor was like, it's okay, I'm not going to get sick, I'm a voodoo witch doctor, you'd be like, what? That's ridiculous. Doesn't matter. Fill in the blank with whatever religion. If some Hindu person was like, it's all right, I will be protected. Or Muslim person was like, Allah will protect me. You'd be like, what? What are you talking about? She not only says God will protect me, but I'm covered in Jesus's blood. What? you could, what's the equivalent of that for other religions? I don't know. Zeus pissed on me, so I'll be safe. Oh, come on, man. This is one of those things I used to know. I'm going to look this up as I talk here to you guys, but I used to know how many religions are there. I used to know that number, and I could use it. Okay, here you go. Here it is. Yes, this is it. 4,200 religions exist in the world. 4,200 religions. So think about it. This woman who just said, I'll be okay. I'll be okay because I'm covered in the blood of Jesus, so I'm fine. That woman is an atheist when it comes to 4,199 religions. But she doesn't go that one last step of the one she was raised in, the one that she believes in wholeheartedly. and that really exposes the absurdity of it. 4,200 religions. What are the chances you pick the right one? Carol. I have no idea if her name is Carol, but she looks like a Carol. What are the chances you pick the right one? Very, very, very small. So, I don't know, maybe don't roll the dice on the blood of Jesus. God, what are we going to do with people, man? It is tough. I mean, generally speaking, I'm of the belief that Americans are kind of historically ignorant. They don't know a lot about history, but I've always made the case that Americans aren't stupid. There's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. You can fix ignorance. You can't really fix stupidity. And I do believe Americans are ignorant, but when you poll the American people on what they think of the various political issues, they oftentimes are very reasonable. So I don't think Americans are stupid. But when you watch a video like this, there are some asterisks, man. There are some caveats. I am hedging a little bit. I think there are plenty of people, for different reasons, but to the extent that you've convinced yourself that the supernatural is not only real and exists, but is obvious, and you know the details of the supernatural, it's hard for me to be kind to you and give you the benefit of the doubt. I think you might be lacking in a certain department. I don't want to say it, but I think you all know what it is. So, don't be like this, guys. Don't be like this. And if you have anybody in your life who you love and you care about who thinks like this, change their mind. Do everything you can to change their mind. Because that mindset will absolutely spread the virus more and will get people killed. So it's not just bad for her. It's bad for everybody. And, I don't know how somebody can live with themselves if they get to the point where their actions lead to the deaths of other people. So just nip it in the bud and make sure everybody stays in as much as possible and you avoid situations where this stuff can easily spread.